Brilliant. So, welcome. Thank you very much for Wendy and Lucy joining me, and welcome to anybody else that is coming along later on and or watching this back. So today is 2nd of April, which means it's Don't Walk Your Dog Day. And it's a day to have conversations about why we might not walk our dogs, signs that maybe we should walk them a little bit less, what we can do with them instead, all of those kind of conversations, all the fun things that we can do without actually having to go outside our front door if we don't want to, if it doesn't feel right. So this I normally have Q&A sessions with my membership people. Wendy is one of my ladies in the membership. So we normally do 2 of these a month at different times of day, different days of week to suit people's schedules. And there's no format, there's no presentation from me. It is just an opportunity for people to get me on Zoom, ask me some questions. Sometimes it might just be celebrating what successes and what little wins we might have had, or it might just be coming on and having a bit of a download because we've had a really stressful day. So it could be any of those things. So Lucy, on the basis that I don't know you at all, I don't think, unless we have, I'm terrible about remembering faces. We haven't, okay, because I can
No,
meet people for the second time and go, oh, it's really nice to meet you, and people are like, I did meet you last year, and I'm like, oh no.
no, I think it was somebody, I think it was Carol who does the acupuncture, pet
Right.
acupuncture. She shared your one of your posts or
Oh,
something, and
fantastic.
that's when I saw it. And I've just got myself, well, me and my partner have just got myself a dog. He's a Romanian rescue,
Hmm.
16 months old. Um, he's very reactive. We've just started training. But my partner, sometimes if I'm not around, he would struggle to walk any distance because he's got problems with his ankles.
Right.
So it's like when I saw your post, I thought, oh, if there's other things that we can do without taking him out,
Yeah.
that she always just think you just want to wear them out because they're just
Yeah.
like full of energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, getting some ideas and tips for that.
Yeah. And how long's this lad been with you?
3 weeks.
Okay, so very recent. Okay.
Yeah, and he's a Romanian rescue. He's been in foster since December before we've had him.
Yeah.
But so they
In the
kind of
UK.
sometimes come, yeah, they do come with their problems, don't they? So
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know much about his background?
no, we're finding out at the minute that he's very reactive to big dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look on the post where he came from, he was underweight because he was being picked on by bigger dogs. So he just looks petrified when he sees other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So it is quite stressful for him and me at the moment, taking him out and trying to
Yeah.
avoid the dogs, and and I thought you just had to take your dog out, and because always in the past, previous dog, loved to go out, and they always look forward to going out, and you think that's what they need to do to go out
Yeah.
and walk. But some of the things you were saying, if they just get stressed and he's all anxious, he just need to go out. But if there's other ways of uh, getting some enrichment fulfillment until he gets a little bit more comfortable,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that would be brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Leela. Leela, have I pronounced that right? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. So this is just a free Q&A session. So if you have questions, do feel free to pop them in once we've finished chatting on this one. Um, will he? What's your lad's name? If you're happy
Ted.
to share, Ted.
Yeah.
And will Ted toilet in the garden?
Yes. Yeah. He's house trained and really good. Yeah.
But he'll have a wee, he'll have a poo in your garden.
Yes.
So you don't have to take him for a walk to get him to go to the toilet.
No.
Amazing. That's great because I know a lot of dogs that's not the case, and that
Yeah.
makes
My old dog was like that.
yeah,
Just
that
go
that does
walking round
complicate
until
things.
he went to the toilet.
So on the basis that it's only been 3 weeks, I think there's so, and even though Ted's been in foster in the UK for 3 months, 4 months,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of upheaval in his life, huge amount of upheaval. And they talk about the rule of three, 3, 3, 3, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. I think that is only ever a guide, and that 333 may be 10, 20, 40. So it is very much letting the dog dictate the pace at which they're ready for new things. And so often, when they first come into your homes, just having access to one room and nothing else can be plenty for them for the time being. And even not taking them for a walk at all for quite some time, because quite a few rescues, especially overseas rescues, they can get startled and they can bolt. And it's amazing how a dog that is really fearful can get out of a collar, a harness that seem it's they're able to just contort their bodies and make themselves so tiny. But Bodhi, my dog Bodhi, did manage to back out of a harness on me once, and I was thinking, like, I thought that was impossible. And I think nothing is impossible when they're trying to escape. So if he can toilet in the garden and he is finding walks quite stressful, I would consider either less walks, shorter walks, or maybe even no walks. I think my rule of thumb is, if half your walks there is some kind of stressful experience, I would say I would stop walking. So how regular is it that you're seeing a dog that Ted finds quite a
Most
lot for him?
times. Yeah,
Most of the
most
time.
times.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can walk past one, and then other times, if it's a bigger dog, he, he just goes bananas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's really hard to, I mean, as much as, I know people that have walked their dog, taken their dogs out at 4 5 a.m. to try and avoid, but you can't always do that. You can't always, avoid everything in life. So I think if the reaction is such that you think he's not having an enjoyable walk, then I say that's not a good experience for him.
yeah,
So I would definitely be considering reducing walks. And if your partner's got trouble with his ankle anyway, I mean, that's also another reason to be able to do things at home differently to help give Ted time to settle. And as much as you're obviously lovely people and loving and giving him an amazing home, you're still relative strangers to him. And
yeah.
I mean, Bodhi came to us at 8 months old from Battersea, so we only came from London, like not major distance. But I don't think we really started to see him begin to settle until he'd been with us for 6 months.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
they've
didn't.
got to kind of get. I've already seen he like looks to me now, because I'm the one who always walks him for confidence, but they really do get that. They've got to learn to trust you, haven't they? And
Yeah,
I don't think we're there
yeah. And it
yet, but
does
it's
just take
better.
time. And no matter what you do, I don't think you can speed it up beyond what they're able to take on board in little stages. And there is so much that you can do to build their confidence without having to go out. So it can be, what sort of food is he on?
I just went to well, I was doing a lot of googling actually, and he's on moles, from the moles country, whatever you call it, the moles shop, their own make, some hyper allergenic dry food, and then he has a little bit of the wet food in it. Oh, he's here
Yeah.
with me now, sniffing my face. Wait, I don't know whether you can see him.
Oh, he's just slightly, oh, there he is. Oh, lovely boy. Lovely boy. He's like, I'm not looking at this weird black thing. Oh, look at him. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we don't know what he is. I think he's got some sort of whippet in him and a bit of
Yeah, he's got a kind of
terrier, and
lurchery look to him, hasn't he?
yeah, yeah.
Gorgeous is what he is.
Yes, he's totally gorgeous. Um, so okay, so you've got wet food and you've got dry food. And how does he normally enjoy his food? Mixed
Yeah, he's
together in a
eating it
bowl?
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be eating it fine. We're not. I don't think we're quite there yet, because we've just given him some wormer stuff from the vets, and some flea treatment, and I don't know whether that's upset his stomach. But I'm not going to change his food again until we've got these wormer and flea stuff sorted, and then go from there.
Yeah.
It's just a right minefield sorting out the type of food that you want to feed them, and you read things in independent surveys, and you just get blinded by it all.
Yeah, it's a real, and it's such a personal decision as well. Such a personal decision. I mean, any changes that you make, introduce slowly. That would be the rule. You know, whenever you bring anything new in, then, you know, introduce it at maybe like 10% of the full daily dose, and then if that settles in okay, then you increase it a little bit over time. So
Right.
just
Okay. Yeah.
introduce something new in small quantities. And yeah, I'd definitely keep it simple for the time being.
Yeah.
So I would think about ways in which you can use some of his food in ways that he might find enriching. So I'm not talking about puzzle feeders, slow feeder bowls, and things like that. I'm talking about maybe some of the wet food being on something where he can just lick it a little bit. And I don't, and so I mean, you can get lick mats that are
Oh
very
yeah,
good.
I've seen the lick mat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say go very often. The lick mats are better used on the backside because they're not as textured. Overly bobbly, overly grooved often isn't what dogs enjoy licking. What I've discovered is when you give them, so say there was a little bit of wet food, what can be quite useful is to give Ted two or three choices. So the wet food for breakfast or whatever, rather than mixing it in with his biscuits, you might put it onto three slightly different things. So it might just be a saucer that you're happy for him to lick. It might be, some kind of lick mat or some kind of board that you're happy so he can lick it off things. So I tend to use like I've got a spare recycling box in my garden. Like it lives in my garden. I'll give it a wash and I'll actually put some food on that for Bodhi to lick off it. And it's something I can just wipe down. So if you have the same food but available in two or three different ways, you can kind of see that there's real power in giving them a bit of choice.
Okay.
Because dogs don't have a lot of choice in their life. And when they realize that they do have some choice, I think it's quite an empowering feeling. I'm sorry if that sounds a bit woo-woo, but we tend to just go, right, here's the food that I've bought for you. Off you go. Whereas actually, if you say, well, do you like it like this or do you like it like that? And they may like it in both ways. It might be that, you know, one is in a bowl that's slightly higher up and one is in a bowl that's on the floor, and you know he looks like he's got quite long legs. It may well be that the bowl on the floor he's having to kind of do that giraffe thing where he's having to crane his neck down. And that in itself, like if you're having to eat food in a position that's not a really nice relaxed eating, like if I was trying to eat in bed,
Yeah.
I'm
We've
not
got
going
him a
to eat.
raised bowl.
Yeah.
We know from the last dog when he got old, somebody said, why have you got the dish on the floor? He's only a small dog, but why do you not raise it? And I didn't even think about it.
No, exactly. So it's quite nice to give them things in slightly different ways, just so that you can observe them and go, right, what looks comfortable, which do they seem to prefer, to giving them choices. The dry food, have you ever tried like a little gentle scatter feed or something like that?
Well, we have had for the first time, a trainer lady come the other day, and she suggested throwing a handful down and saying the find. To
Yeah,
maybe trying that in the garden. We haven't done it in the garden yet. We've done it in the house.
yeah.
So scattering it around so that's kind of keeping him occupied.
Yeah, and I love that. And so, anything that engages his seeking system, so it's something that gets his nose going. Sniffing is a obviously incredibly natural thing for a dog to do, but it's also really nice and calming, but it's very tiring. Like any dog that, I mean, it's scent work. Basically, you're doing scent work at like it's lovely and easy. And it is something that their brain is having to work quite hard because their nose is going 10 to the dozen to find the pieces of food. They eat them. Most dogs enjoy that experience. It needs to look like he's enjoying it, not he's frustrated that he's now
Yeah.
having to find his breakfast. I would have some in a bowl, and I would have some scattered, and you can do it on a dog towel or something like that, and you can sort of scrunch it up a little bit. It may well be that doing it outside in the garden might be a bit tricky for him to start off with, or he may absolutely ace it, and you'll be fine. But you can have food in a bowl, so he just got nice freely available food, and that you could have some that he's having to sort of search out a little bit. And again, you can see, does he just want to eat his food and go and have a sit down, or does he really, like, is his tail wagging a little bit as he's finding the pieces of food? And dogs are different, you know, and until you
Yeah.
try, you don't know. And when he's more confident, or you know, you can have a little bit of experiment. I really like using recycling in ways to help grow their confidence a little bit. So for instance, it might be something like a cardboard box, and I would how long are his legs? Labrador length? Longer?
No, not quite as long as
About
that.
10 inch.
About 10 inches, my partner just said.
Blimey.
It comes up, he stands up to my knees.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh gosh, he
Knee
looked
high.
taller than that. He looked a lot taller than that, didn't he? I was thinking German Shepherd size.
Oh, no.
Okay, so maybe something like a shoebox sized side. And if it's got flaps on it, I would cut the flaps off it. So you've got sort of a low-sided box. And what you could do is you could have some of his dry food around the outside of this box without flaps on it. And you could try scattering a few bits inside it. Now, some dogs will quite happily get pieces of food from inside a cardboard box. Other dogs will find that far too much. So you've always got food around the outside so that it's easily available. And it may well be that food near the box is a bit too scary for him. So that gives you really useful information. Or he may be fine. He's eating, he's walking around the cardboard box. He might put his head in it. He might even put a paw in it. And so that he's getting his food in a way where he's interacting with an object that's basically a bit novel to him. I would do it on a floor that's not slippery. So if you imagine that a cardboard box on a tile floor or a laminate floor versus on a carpet or a rug, one's going to move around a lot more, one's going to make a lot more noise. So always start off with like the easiest setting, if you like, and see how he gets on with it. And if he enjoys having a bit of a rummage in that cardboard box, you could pop, say, a loo roll, or you know, loo roll innard, or an egg box or something like that. So he's having to have a little bit more of a snuffle. Things are moving. There's a bit more novelty to it. It's making a bit of a noise. So just and you know, obviously making sure that he's not running off with anything and trying to eat it. You want to make sure he's not swallowing any cardboard. But it can be a really nice way of, you know, not buying anything. You know, you don't need to buy any plastic puzzle toys or anything like that. And often I think dogs can find those too much and a bit too frustrating. You know, this is not about making it hard for them to eat. It's about adding a little bit more of a foraging experience that they enjoy, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And from there you can, you know, you can make it increasingly you know, a little bit more of a challenge if it looks like he's enjoying it. And it might seem completely unrelated to him being worried about a big dog, but what we're doing is we're helping his personality, if you like. We're helping to grow his brain. We're kind of creating new neural pathways in his brain, so that's the brain of a more confident dog. So if he's able to go rummaging around with a bit of a crash and a bang with some cardboard, he is becoming more confident because he's tackling things that are a little bit of a stretch for him, but it's okay. So he's learning, okay, this was a cardboard box. It was a bit novel. I wasn't very sure about it. But actually I had some of my breakfast and it was all okay. So he's learning that just because he's not sure about something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's scary. So his brain is becoming the brain of a more confident dog. And that's the same brain that will go out on walks and will see bigger dogs. So it's not going to be the thing that will fix it, but it's like
No.
a little part of that puzzle.
Yeah.
I love the game of Find It. I use that a lot. So, you know, if he is seeing things that worry him, if he's used to playing the game of Find It, that can be quite a helpful way. You're distracting them, but you're also helping them to, you know, search for those little pieces of food. Again, they're scenting. Scenting is naturally calming. They will still be aware that the other dog is there, but it's giving them something to help them cope, and then giving them time to process it. If they're already past that point of being able to pay any attention to food, that's when they're not learning particularly. I think then it's, and that's when I think not exposing them to those situations too much is helpful, because they're sort of past being able to have a useful experience at that point. And when he does react, what sort of reaction is it? Sort of barking and lunging, or
He pulls backwards, and it's like a snarling. He looks petrified.
yeah, bless him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as much as possible, I would try to avoid putting him in those situations
Yeah.
if you can. I mean, there's all sorts of activities that you can do at home, but hopefully that's just a little bit of
Yeah.
an
Thank
idea
you. Yeah.
of getting something going. Leila, did you have a question? I mean, I can carry on talking to Lucy if you don't, and you're just here to sort of sit and listen. You're very welcome. I don't know if she's there or not. Maybe not. If you are, just come back in, Leila, when you're ready. Wendy, did you have any questions for me tonight?
No questions.
Oh, not like you.
I just wanted to say, Lucy, I'm actually really happy that you discovered Niki so early in your journey with having your new dog, because um, Niki's managed to change our lives over the last year. And this advice you're getting now, I wish I'd had when we first got trouble, because things could have been so much different. I wish I hadn't walked her straight away, and I did too much. I was in this mindset, I need to socialize. She's nervous, she needs to be socialized more, taking her to town centres and walking her around the streets. I'm showing her to cars and cats and dogs and everything, more exposure. And I had to do more, more, more. And actually, I learned it was quite the opposite for her. And each dog is an individual.
Mm.
But really, I wish I'd just taken the time to learn about her, who she was, and to create that bond before I started doing all this stuff in the outside world. There's so much you can do in the home. So I'm really excited that you've discovered Niki so early. I think your journey will be different. You've already got that inquiring mind.
Mm.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say, because it's just you think you've got to get them out. You've got to. He hasn't had his second walk actually today, because after reading the things you've been posting and that, I just thought, no, I'm going to do some more stuff in the garden with him and just kind of play with him, and not, because you kind of feel a bit bad, don't you? Because you think they need the walks, because that's what you do. But when they're young, they do remember things, and there's some things they just don't forget. So I think it is really important. So whatever you do when he's young, now we first got him, to get it right for him.
Yeah, and I say Bodhi came to us at 8 months old, and he was chaos. Not chaos by name, but he was just complete chaos. And we used to walk him twice a day. And the evenings he was horrendous. Like, he couldn't settle. He'd be mouthing my boyfriend. Like, he really struggled to get enough sleep. And I think it was more by accident. I mean, I was training to be a dog trainer at the time. This is 6 years back now, and it was more by accident because I was dreading the walks so much. And Bodhi wasn't reactive in terms of barking, lunging, snarling. He just wanted to get to everybody, and like he'd be pogoing up and down, and I mean, he would be vocalizing, but just in an overexcited way. And it was so stressful for me and so physically hard work. I think I stopped the second walk just because I dreaded it so much.
Mm.
Um, and and as soon as I started doing that and just putting other little training games into the day, as and when I could, fitting around what I was working or whatever, he changed completely. Like, and even to this day now, like, you know, he's a collie lurcher. He could work and he could run all day long if I gave him the chance. Wouldn't be good for him physically or mentally, but he would do it. He's always up for it. But he was just so much easier to live with. Like, he just found the world so overwhelming. It gave him too much. It just gave him too much stimulation. And as you say, it's that it's inbuilt into us of, well, of course you have it. You know, you everybody has to walk their dogs 2 to 3 times a day. It's just what you do. You wouldn't even think of sort of giving them a day off to decompress or chill out a bit, or, you know, have a doggy duvet day or something like that. You know, you just wouldn't. It just not in us. We think, well, that would be mean, or, and even if there's quite a few people who've sort of come into my world that their gut has been saying something about this doesn't feel right, but society, partners, friends, family, everybody's giving all the good advice in the world of do more, you know, and the more struggles they have, you just got to wear them out. Like, you'll exhaust them eventually, and it'll fix things, and it doesn't. It just adds fuel to the fire, I think. So,
And it's like I took him to the vets as well because he needed some flea and wormer because he'd not been. Well, I don't know when the last time he was fleed, but the wormer was in December, and I thought, well, I need to get him registered at the vets.
yeah,
Of course, you have to have the brucella retest.
yeah,
And the vets that we went to, they said we can't come into the practice. We need to do it in the car. So they tried to come out and do it, and of course we had to put a muzzle. I said, I think you need to put a muzzle on because I can't vouch for how he's going to be. Well, that was just too stressful. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have taken him. I should have just bought some over-the-counter stuff and waited until he was settled in. They have given me some, for when he's ready, some sedation tablets to give him before we go the next time.
yeah.
But I think I'm just going to leave it now. He's got one. They took him in and weighed him and managed to get him in, and they weighed him. But in hindsight, I wish I hadn't to put him through that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
we've all been there. Wendy, how many conversations have we had in the membership? We've all done that. Like, all of us have, like, you know, a professional says this has to happen, and we go, okay,
yeah,
and we do it because we feel we have to, and then afterwards we go, okay, right, and I mean, and, you know, I will never go against anything that the vet says you need to do, absolutely, but also I think having confidence to be able to advocate for what your dog needs is also, as you say, and muzzle training can be done in a really positive way, like when the muzzle comes out,
that's what they've advised to
tails,
get
you
muzzle
know.
training.
Yeah. So there's a really lovely game called Cone Game. I've actually got a video on YouTube that you can check out
Right, yeah.
on muzzle introduction, and it's just getting them to happily pop their nose in a little yogurt pot or something like that, or a beaker, and you're just getting them to sort of target an object and popping their nose into something, so that when the muzzle comes out, they're just like, brilliant, this means whatever high value treats, whatever is, you know, tasty to them. But yeah, introducing it, and you know, every dog, if they're muzzle trained, it's so much, makes life so much easier, because even the most laid back, chilled out dog, if they are in a stressful situation, if they are in any kind of pain, I think every dog has the capabilities to bite, of purely of a, that hurt, get off me, you know. That's not an aggressive dog, that's just communication of, ow, that hurt me, please stop. And if that means that they have to bite to make that pain, to perceive that pain to stop, every dog can bite. So if a dog is happy in their muzzle, it's one less thing to add to the stress when they have to go somewhere and have something done to them. But yeah, it's and also, there's various things that you can do in terms of conversations with vets about saying, I have a nervous dog, can you give me an appointment when there isn't going to be other dogs around, or is there a separate entrance, or
Yeah, they were
meet...
quite good actually.
Yeah,
Bring him into the car park, do some, just so he knows the car park, and then do that for a few times, and then maybe bring him into the waiting room.
yeah,
See if you can get him in just to practice. So they were quite good actually.
yeah. And there's there's a really great vet called Dr. Amber Batson, and she does a talk about the is it the weighing scales of doom? And it's this thing about when you take your dogs to the vets, generally the first thing you'll do is you'll try to get them on this weird, strange, textured, slightly moving black thing in the corner of a
Yeah.
vet's weight, like it's a space that they're worried about. And the first thing we do is go and stand on this thing. And no wonder our dogs are just like, don't like the vets. I don't even like that thing. I don't, and there are games that you can play to build confidence, to get them used to doing those kind of things. But it's amazing how it's a real struggle for us to see what that experience might be like for the dog, of taking them somewhere new that smells weird beyond belief, of disinfectant and bleaches and medicines and dogs and cats and rabbits and like all sorts of weird stuff. And then we ask them to go and stand on this weird slippery wobbly thing for a second, like, and they've got no idea why. So yeah, it's quite an interesting one to try and put ourselves in the dog's shoes. Yeah. So Leela popped a thing in the chat. She said she's good, she's just listening, but she was interested in to learn a bit about free work. Love talking about free work. Have you ever heard of free work, Lucy?
No.
So, ACE free work. So yesterday I became a certified ACE trainer. Yay! It's just really good
Congratulations.
timing. I've been working on it for a few years, which is really cool. ACE is really tricky to describe in a short way because there's so many layers to it. So I'll do my best, shall we say? So ACE stands for animal centered education and free work. So we are setting up, it looks like canine enrichment playground. I think that's the best way of describing it. So it looks like snuffle mats and things to lick and things to chew and things to walk on and things to explore and things to smell. So it just looks like this fun playground for dogs. And it is fun and it is really enriching for the dogs. And every session is kind of tailored for the dog based on what their needs are, what their history is, what it is that we're trying to help them with. So it creates an amazing experience for the dog, but it also gives us the opportunity to really observe them and really understand them. So we can look at them over an ACE free work session, and the session might last 5 minutes, might last 15 minutes, and we can get a really interesting insight into what their preferences are. So what I was talking about in terms of giving them choices, it might be how they organize their body, like when they're licking something at a certain height or when they're settling down to chew, how do they organize their body? How do they move? What's their posture like? How balanced are they? How connected are they? What are their ears like? And things like that. So physically, we can just look at the move in a really natural way, because a lot of the time if we're interacting with our dog, we're actually not getting them to move in a very natural way. And I've done a lot of dog training over the last 5-6 years, and I look back at my videos and I can now see just how much I wasn't helping Bodhi move in a really natural way. I think dogs are very good at moving in the way that is helpful for them. And by that, if I drew a parallel, if you imagine a toddler or a young child when they're playing or reading or moving around, they will just sort of sit and squat and they will move, and they're not hampered by constraints of like, oh, I have to sit in this chair for 8 hours a day. You know, they will just move their body freely. And like, kids never have backache, do they? Like, you know, they won't do things that don't do their body any good. And I think dogs are exactly the same, but dogs can only move and interact with the choices that we make available to them. So for instance, things like, how do we give them their food? If it's only in a certain way, and I'm not just talking heights, but you know, say if it is only in a certain way, they are not able to move in a way that perhaps they would if they could. So it's about setting up stations for them to explore that really does help them to move their bodies in a beneficial way. Because if they do move in a beneficial way, it is such a physically and emotionally rewarding experience. It can actually help with a lot of behavioral struggles. So for dogs that aren't very confident, for dogs that, you know, maybe they're very clingy to their humans, they might have separation anxiety. It can be all sorts of different things. It might be that a dog isn't great with recall. We can use ACE free work in certain ways where we can teach skills, but it's not as much about, oh, it's a training game that teaches, I ask you to do this, you do this thing. It builds up connections with us in very subtle ways. So yeah, it's you may be scratching your head at that point and going, okay, really, I have no idea what she's talking about. It's the kind of thing you have to start seeing and start doing. So it can be used. So for instance, muzzles, we talked about muzzles, Lucy. So if let me see if I can flick, I might do a bit of screen sharing, that could be helpful. A picture paints 1,000 words, doesn't it? Right, let me just dip into something and I will screen share. So I've got lots of videos in my membership area, so I'm just gonna open up some. What have I got in there that's going to illustrate that? Okay, yeah, okay, that's quite a useful one. Which makes sounds off. Right. Let me share my screen. Can you see that? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a fairly complex ACE free work setup. It doesn't need to have this many things, and you don't need to buy stuff. You can do all of this with dog towels, washing up bowls, suitcases, all sorts of things. So you don't need to buy stuff. I'm going to let it play and just sort of talk about it a little bit. So, right, let me just talk about this for a second. Right, okay. Can you see there's this basket here with I've got some snuffle mats in there. Oh, flipping heck. Whatever. There's a load of new tools in Zoom sharing, which are annoying because they turn things on that you don't need. There we go. That's better.
When you say snuffle mats, so they just, I've seen like them putting chews inside of cloths and rolling them up. Is that
Yeah,
the
it
sort of...
can be. So these are snuffle mats. So they have got sort of like an open lattice back. If you imagine a rubber doormat that has holes in it,
Yeah,
you can actually make your own from a rubber doormat with holes in the back of it. And it's got bits of fleece that are tied through it. Hold on, I have one. Of course I have one to hand. This is one I did buy off Amazon. So this has like, it's got like a plastic structure
right, yeah.
behind it, and then these are individual bits of fleece that you just tie through. You can get them on Amazon. You've got them on different sort of craft places. I have made a few myself. They're really easy to make. You just tie things through. It's actually quite but that could be in that basket. That could just be a scrunched up dog towel, or some, cut up clothes that were going out to, you know, clothes that were not maybe good enough to go into a charity shop or that, or something like that. So for the muzzle training, because that's in an object, it could be that a dog is worried about putting their face into a muzzle. So by getting them to sort of forage for food in something soft like that little basket that I had there, so things are going to be touching their face and touching their nose and touching their whiskers. So they're getting sensation around their face, but he's choosing to do it. So I'm not going, right, here's a thing, put your nose in it. I've scattered a few bits of dry food and some treats in there. And he is just sort of gently snuffling in there to find the food. So he's getting used to the sensation of things touching his face. Okay. Now, it also gives me an opportunity to just sort of see how he moves. And we actually discovered he's got mild hip dysplasia in his right hip by watching him move around through ACE free work setups. That's a lick mat that I've stuck to a cone that I have. These are camping stools, and these are snuffle mats that I've bought that go on top. But I say you don't need to buy stuff. You could have you could have any kind of solid box, and you could just scrunch up a dog towel on top. Anything that is safe. I've got an upturned plant pot here to make the water bowl a better height for Bodhi. So he's just having some of his food. I'm not doing it when he's hungry. He'll have had some breakfast already. So this is not make life difficult for a dog that's hungry and wants to eat. This is about encouraging exploration with little bits of food. There could be a crunchy chew for them to have as well. And then I've shortened this down. That's why there was a jump. So it's just allowing him to explore and move. Now, I've also got slightly different textures underfoot. That's a cut up yoga mat at the back. That's a garden kneeling mat that I had. Again, when they're walking on different surfaces, it's helping to create confidence because you can see whether or not they avoid walking on certain textures. Their paws are incredibly sensitive and they get a huge amount of information through their paws. So it's interesting to see, do they avoid walking on something, or they're quite happy? Do they like standing on something to sort of change their position of things, to access things? So, for instance, this snuffle mat on the top of here, Bodhi could stand on something at the back so that he's slightly taller to it, or he could come round to the front and he could come at it from this way. So again, I'm giving him choice as to how he approaches things, and he may do both, but it's all interesting information. It doesn't have to be about food. So some people say my dog's not that foodie. It can also be things that are interesting to smell. So it could be, and especially if your dog's not going for as many walks, bringing scents in things that smell from elsewhere can make your own indoor space or the garden be much more interesting to them. So something that's quite useful, especially where there's some dog reactivity, there's some nervous to other dogs. If you have a friend who has a dog, if you can ask them, can I have a towel? Can I have a dog towel that's not fresh out of the wash? You could actually have that. I wouldn't have it where you've got the food, but say, say where the water bowl is. I mean, not next to the water bowl, but instead of where that is, you could just have a dog towel that came from another dog. So there is a sense of smell that is, that smell of another dog that is being brought into the ACE free work setup, and they can choose to explore it and sniff it, or they can choose to stay well away from it. So you can introduce interesting things in that way. That cone is too wobbly, so I definitely want everything to be stable. This is not about creating a really challenging obstacle. This is meant to be just nice, gentle exploration and nothing too challenging. So Bodhi's quite a tall dog. So in later setups now, what I do is I try to avoid putting anything on the floor pretty much. Obviously, if he knocks some food on the floor, then he picks it up off the floor. It's not a problem. But as a bigger dog, I'm not going to be scattering lots of stuff on the floor because he has to kind of like crane his neck downwards. That's interesting. So he says, I don't want the lick mat there. He picked it up and he pulled it over onto the floor anyway. So, so if the dog was needing support, it may well be, I mean, I'm just sort of sitting there and watching him and letting him get on with it. That's fine. If he was neat, and Bodhi's done quite a lot of free work, it might well be that I want to add some food to the station that he's at. So if I want to help his range of movement in a really subtle way with his neck, I'm just placing down little pieces of food onto this snuffle mat just to encourage a little bit of movement. So we can do things like that. So it's almost like a little bit of physio type movement, just gentle movement. It could also be that, say he was at this station over here, it could be that I go and join him at that station and just add a few little extra bits and go, well, that was a really nice choice. Let's investigate this together. And, you can just add some more bits of food to it. So it's building a really lovely connection and bond and trust between you, because if your dog is engaged in an experience that's really meaningful for them, if they are moving their body in a way that feels right, it's going to, it's I'm sure it's very likely to feel good for them, and you're a part of that picture, like, so you're building that bond without having to, do any sort of crazy tuggy games or anything like that. Is that making sense, Leela? Do feel free to pop any questions in the comments. It is, I say, I think it's quite a challenging thing to explain in a short way, because it does so many things. There is so much that it can do. It can help dogs that struggle with things like getting into vehicles. So it can help grow confidence around vehicles. It can help dogs that are struggling with separation anxiety. So if you imagined, say, rather than sort of being sat in the middle of this setup, I could be sat to one side, and in effect, what we're doing is we're encouraging the dog that if they want to, and it's all entirely choice based, if they want to, they could move away from their human to explore the stations that are furthest away from the human. So that if you've got a dog that is like what we call a Velcro dog, like just never leaves your side, you can set up ACE free work where they may want to move away from you because they're enjoying that experience, and whenever they want to come back to you to connect with you again, they can do that again. And it's just really fascinating to see what changes in their body. Bodhi's tail, when he's a bit tight through his back, his tail tends to curve around to the right a little bit. It gets this little kink, this little banana shape, But at the moment, you see it's almost poker straight downwards. So that is, this video is, I don't know how long, 10 minutes. The whole length of the session was probably close on 20 minutes. So I've sort of chunked it down. But because he's moving in this way, his tail, rather than carrying that tension that leads it to be a bit of a banana, just lengthens. And it's those subtle little things that, you know, it's lovely to see, but it's subtle. I'm rambling, but does that make sense?
It's just nice to see how calm Bodhi looks.
Yeah, and
You know, it's like
he used to be chaotic.
meditation almost for him, you know, just plodding and exploring.
Yeah. And I mean, I have very early videos, Lucy, of Bodhi and Leah. I like he used to tear around our garden. I have that is astroturf in my garden now because Bodhi just destroyed it. It was just craters and holes everywhere. But Bodhi would just like he would just zoom me around the garden like he was just frantic, just so much energy. And as I say, it would make you think, I need to take him somewhere and I need to get him running. And he does love to run. And we recently came back from a little long weekend on the beach. And yes, he sprinted on the beach and he absolutely loved it. But a sort of a 10-15 minute ace free work session would be enough to make him go, I'm just going to go and settle down and have a sleep. Like it's exhausting, even though it doesn't look like anything at all. Oh, Leah's put something into the chat. Let me just go through that. Right, thank you. I was introduced to it through my behaviorist, but only in a short session. I'm a dog walker and only do solos, so do lots of drop-ins, and I think quite a few would benefit from it. Yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Are there any rules as such of things that would be good to avoid? Are puzzle toys okay to use? Also, really interested in how you use it for vehicle confidence, as my dog Freddie really struggles in the car with confidence. Recently diagnosed with hip dysplasia and is reactive, which doesn't help. Right. Okay. Gosh. Okay. There's loads there. So I don't know of a dog that won't benefit from doing ace free work. Like it's such a powerful thing. And once you start, it's a bit addictive. You just want to learn more. It's like peeling an onion. You know, I've given you sort of the outside layer and nothing more. Like there's so much to learn and it can do so much. I wouldn't say rules as such. I would always include water. So always water immediately in that area so that they don't have to move away to have a drink. I would start off simple, like it might just be two really simple little stations, like a lick mat and a snuffle mat, or two different sort of snuffling stations, and build on it. What else would I say are the sort of essentials? Think about, I would say try to be intentional with it. And just by that, I mean, think about your dog and what their range of movement is, how tall they are, what they like. And it's not about being more isn't better. Like I would definitely say less is more to start off with. I would not have anything in there that is particularly noisy, even if you're wanting to grow confidence. So I would say it's better to have quiet things rather than lots of things that are crinkly and crash and bang. So, you know, before I talked about the cardboard box game, I wouldn't do something that's going to be sort of noisy like that to start off with. You know, you can grow things in certain ways, but I would say, you know, start with the soft and gentle approach. I would definitely avoid slippery floors. So if you have got tile, laminate, anything like that, always put a rug down. especially if there is any kind of pain or discomfort, anything skeletal, anything arthritis, hip dysplasia, any of that kind of stuff, dogs really struggle on our slippery floors, really struggle. And so many of us, me included, we have a lot of wood laminate that was in here when we got this place, but I've got lots of rugs and runners. So if you imagine a dog walking on a slippery surface every day, lots of little tiny little slips on the floor, and some of them look quite funny. We may laugh at them. I know I've laughed at a dog that looks a bit like Bambi running around a corner, but now that I know every dog I see trying to gain traction on a slippery floor, it makes me shudder a little bit. Have a place to settle, so something like their bed, a mat, a towel, so that if you put something like a crunchy chew down, they might want to, as part of that session, they might want to settle down and have a chew. Again, not rules but suggestions, it's choices. So different tastes, different textures, things that are licky, things that are chewable, things that are crunchy. Like dogs, when you see a dog crunching, you'll often see like amazing happiness in their face, and chewing through their back teeth does amazing things for them. Soft things. Toys can be good. You might want to have a toy in there, but I wouldn't necessarily have a sort of busy tuggy game as part of it. But if they like to hold a toy or something like that, that can be good. And I'd say video it if you can. Set your phone up in some way and hit record, because it's amazing. I mean, my powers of observation never feel that good, and it's incredible when I go back and I look through a video and I'm like, oh wow, gosh, I didn't see that in the moment, because there's so much to watch. But you can go through and watch it a couple of times and just go, what happens to their tail when they're doing certain things? Or I'm just going to look at the ears. You can get kind of geeky with it if you want to. But I think video can be hugely useful. So yeah, I wouldn't puzzle toys. I think it depends on the puzzle. Most of the puzzle toys that I've seen are probably too hard. It's definitely not about creating anything remotely frustrating or a challenge. It is thinking about, a dog naturally, what would they choose to do? I don't think they would choose to spin round those kind of test tube ones and see if a piece of kibble flicks out. And some dogs find them really fun. But I would say, as ace free work, I would say we want to engage their seeking system. We want to get them wanting to use their nose and all their senses, but we want them to just be exploring, rather than problem solving, if that makes sense. Vehicle confidence, that's probably a whole new Zoom. There's lots of things that you could do, depending on whether you're working on ramps or spaces. What would be a good thing to show you? Don't think I've got anything in one of my presentations. No, I don't think so. So for instance, thinking about what it is with the car that is the struggle. So if it's the movement, it might be you want to get them walking on different textures, and they might be textures that have a little bit of give to them. So for instance, in that video, I had that gardening mat and I had these folded up kiddie mats. They're from IKEA and other places. So you could create sort of layers, like stepped layers, if you like, for them to walk over, that have some element of a little bit of give. We don't want them, they're not going to be walking through something really unstable, but like a bit of instability, especially where you've got hip dysplasia. It could be walking next to something could be a challenge, or walking through something could be a challenge. So imagine actually getting into the car or getting into the boot. The same can be used for things like helping dogs get used to going into somewhere like a hydro treadmill. And it could be that you set up something, it might just be the back of a chair, So there is some upright surface, and it might be that there's a snuffle station somewhere near an upturned, a chair with its back to it, or a table on its side. And you can see whether the dog chooses to kind of avoid that thing. So we think about things that you can set up that can create, it's not like you're going to create a car door, albeit if you've got a space where you can have a car in an Ace Freeworks setup, that could be hugely beneficial. But not all of us, where I am, it's really hard for me to do that. But I can set up situations with Ace Freework where over time I can have stations in around obstacles that can create some parallels in an environment, I would say. If there's any kind of pain, just sort of going off at a slight tangent, but it's always sort of part and parcel of conversations with Ace Freework, is that if I would say 70% of the clients that I see where their dogs are reactive, they struggle with certain things, 70% of them, there is some kind of discomfort or pain involved. And I think it stands to reason, if you've got toothache or you've got a headache, everything just grates on you that bit more. So yeah, I mean, Bodhi was my dog was discovered to have a right hip dysplasia, and he's been on a pain medicine trial, and he's definitely less barky at the noises that he hears since he's been on the pain meds. So conversations with vets about that is something that is often useful. But I think as a dog walker, I mean, when I was doing my dog training, I started out walking some dogs, and I was specifically looking for clients whose dogs could only do solo walks, couldn't go to daycare, couldn't go on the pack walks. And so I actually was walking some dogs that were very reactive on walks, and I had some lovely clients where fairly early on I said, I know I'm your dog walker, but what I want to come round is I want to come round and I want to not walk your dog, because I wanted to do activities at home. And I had some lovely clients that said, okay. So I did exactly that. And, so I was going around and we were basically working on things like this instead. So they were still getting physical enrichment, mental enrichment, but they were learning great skills, and they weren't getting exposed to the things that made them reactive. So I think dog walkers doing Ace Freework and not walking, I think, is a beautiful thing. Do it. So Ace Freework was born from an incredible lady called Sarah Fisher. So I would recommend everybody have a little look at the website, which is Tilly Farm. I'll grab it and then I'll put it in the chat. Have a look at this, Leah, because if you get a chance to go and do some in-person training, it's incredible. And that I was lucky enough that Monday, Tuesday, that's where I was. And I guarantee you will find it's a life-changing experience. Right, I'll pop that in the chat so you can grab that. Yeah, so they do online learning, and they also do in-person workshops as well, and they are incredible. Okay, good. I'm aware it's 8:10 already. I don't even know where Bodhi's gone. He's had a very busy don't walk your dog day, so I think he has gone off to bed early. I was planning to do his physio. We never even got on to do his physio exercises. He tapped out.
Oh,
Is there any other questions I can help anybody with tonight? Just a quickie. No, all good.
I just like to say to Lucy, just trust your instincts, because I think you know best.
Thank you.
Trust yourself, seriously. And this whole oh God, I'm a bad dog owner if I don't walk my dog. Let it go. Trust your instincts. I can tell already you know what you're doing.
Yeah, well said. Very
Thanks.
true. Thank you for joining me. So this is very similar to the Q&A sessions that we have in the membership, and it's about this number of people. Actually, it was really nice. So you basically get a bit of one-to-one time, and we talk about anything and everything, don't we? So
Yeah.
thank you for joining me. And yeah, I will pop this up on YouTube. You never know, it might help somebody else find out a little bit more. and I will work on my ability to describe ACE-free work in a slightly more succinct way.
Thank you very much. I found it very enlightening.
Good. Oh, well, keep in touch and let me know how you get on.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.